my name is Lauren Louie. I have been with Kat since the rehearsal started last year in August, and I will be transforming into Demeter today. So the first thing I usually do is like prep my face a little. We have basically like a primer called Derma Shield for those of us who have kind of sensitive skin, so that's kind of what I go in with. And then the first thing I use is this little base. I'm gonna pull this mirror up, and this is the first thing I do. Come all the way down and over. And kind of make the beginnings of a cat. And then we just blend it all in. So my makeup is a little bit different just because my skin is darker than some of the other Demeters just because of my complexion. So my plot line is actually a little bit different. So some cats have different plots for their makeup depending on their skin tone and what specific cats they play. But this is what I go in first with. And then we just blend her all in. And make the muzzle here. Very different than normal human makeup. And that is kind of my first step. You can't see it too well just because this is like the base. But then we go in with our second color, which for Demeter, she's this very vibrant orange, yellow, tiger looking cat. So we go in with this like orange color here. And then we just fill in the spots we didn't get with the other spots here. And we bring it all the way down to the neck. Because our unitards, our costumes come up to around here. So then we have to blend all that stuff in. And here we go with that second color. To blend her all in. This part is kind of like the longest part. It's just getting all the base on. Hopefully you guys can kind of see the color difference. Though it's pretty minimal, it still has a bit of a difference here. And we just bring it all the way down. When we were taught this makeup, I think it took us at first, I think about an hour each person when we first learned how to do all this. So now that I can kind of get it done in 30 to 45 minutes is crazy. I would have never imagined that we would get it done that quickly. So after those first two colors, we take one little blending sponge and we just kind of smooth out the areas that are a bit rigid just to make sure it all flows seamlessly. And same thing down with our neck, same exact thing. Looking pretty good so far. So now we go in, so Demeter has these really like sharp features. So she comes in with this like darker color here. It's like a coppery brown. And I believe all the Demeters have this color, but we bring her in shading almost kind of like how you would contour your face with normal makeup, just a little bit heavier. And obviously with a not normal skin color. And then we bring it all up in here. And it looks really harsh at first, but once it's all blended, it always comes out to look pretty spot on. And then we take another little blending brush, little sponge, bring her all into the hairline. And for some people, because all of our skin tones are different, we kind of have to blend differently. And then we just bring this out here. and blend her in. Looks so harsh on this side, but they end up looking okay once you get her done. Almost there with that. And that looks pretty even, pretty good. This used to take me the longest time. And sometimes some of us are a little bit more nitpicky, so some of us go in and blend a bit more as we go. And then this part is kind of hard. We have to make, so because we're cats, we have to make the muzzle around the face. But it has to be very minimal because this one is very pigmented. And you just make a circle around, like a little cat's muzzle. And you bring it in. And same blending brush as we used before. And we just kind of go in and make her a little bit less harsh with the lines. So that's like, you can kind of see the difference. This one is so harsh and this one's a little bit more blended. Step-by-step process. And there she is, muzzle's complete, everything's blended. So now we start like doing all of the cat stuff. So we bring in our little black color here and we use just like a little chiseled brush here. I remember this was one of the hardest parts for me when I first started the makeup, was making eyebrows because they're not normal ones. So you have to go in and you kind of angle it a bit. I'm gonna open this. And you follow your own eyebrow line, but you bring it all the way up. And it looks kind of spiky here. Looks crazy at first, but it all comes together. We make some following ones all along that eyebrow line. And going in during the rehearsal process, we always would come in and practice our makeup on times where we had a break or had a little extra time just to like make sure we were doing honor to the cat's designs. And then I just kind of fill her out and make it a little bit more seamless. And bring it in. Huge difference. So this is how we get the first one going, but they're sisters, not twins. So sometimes your eyebrows don't always look perfect, but sisters, not twins is the perfect thing to remember. Come in and do the other side. Same exact thing, or at least we try our best. And we shade all of that in, just like the other side. Try to make it as symmetrical as we possibly can. Fill out those brows. And I know this is where I get like, sometimes I get stuck on that part of the makeup because I want them to be so perfect, but you just gotta let it go. I'm sure cats aren't symmetrical either. And then we start on the nose. This is also a harder part. And everyone's nose is different. So this one is just like a little triangle. Some people have like circled noses or more pointed ones. Mine is just a little triangle right on the nose. I've kind of found my own little trick with it to make sure it ends up looking pretty decent. And there we go, we just shade her in as best as we can. And then we'll have a little cat nose. So this is kind of what it looks like, bare bones. And then we go in to having this little seam line here to go into our cat mouth. Lots of lines and precision. I had to learn a lot about makeup on this tour. But luckily we had Victoria Tinsman teaching us everything, and she was so precious and very patient and delicate with all of us. She really taught us how to do it. And then I just bring the lip up. She has a bit of a Cupid's bow. So she has, and all cats have different mouths too. So this one just happens to be a Cupid's bow. And then I just follow my own lip line down, pretty easy. And she comes right on down. And then I also line the bottom lip for Demeter as well. And this is where it gets a little tricky. Try to even out all sides. So if I do one side thicker, then I try to make sure the other side matches. And then we always make little cat lines at the end here. So some of them I believe curve up to more of a smile. And then this one tends to just be a little bit more flat and plain. And of course, last but not least for this part, we have little whisker pores. So some people have like full on whiskers, but Demeter just has these little dots that come down here. It does actually kind of make a big difference. I feel like that's like, ah, yes, you're a cat now. Those are one of the like big things. And there is the base. So from here on out, we just kind of make sure nothing needs a little tweaking or some help or some TLC. And then we go into the powder stage. So this part is kind of the messiest part. And we use the Ben Nye powder. So because the show is so physically demanding, we sweat buckets. So this is what keeps it all on so that you can't even tell that we're sweating. We just look like we're sparkling, a little glisten. But this keeps all the makeup on so that we don't sweat it all off. And you just kind of do the big parts first. So like my eyebrows are the big part, my nose, and the mouth. And then you kind of just go in and pat the rest down. And for me, I make sure I like really powder just because there is so much color differentiation and contouring for this cat. And then this is why we wear the robes. So much powder. I'm trying not to get the mic. Then we powder our neck too. And then this is what helps keep the whole base on for us. And then we add up eye layers on top. Kind of look like a powdered donut at this point, but it's okay. It goes away. So what that does is it seals in all the makeup so that from here on out, we just kind of add on top of it like layers. Kind of crazy. Okay, so this is when all the detail comes in for Demeter. She's kind of one of the, just like the young adult cat. And she sings Macavity with Bomb Ballerina. So they're kind of like two halves of a whole, I feel like I think of them as. And so this is when we get all the glitter, the pretty stuff comes in. Sometimes the black from like the eyebrows and the nose tend to bleed in. So I just kind of go in and fix, make sure nothing looks crazy. And then I go in for the eyes. So I have this like really big smoky eye that took me forever at first, but now I've kind of figured out how to go about it in a way. So I just start with this like really pretty shimmery gray. And I go in and make it really, really dramatic. When I first started, we didn't make it as dramatic. And then Victoria was like, no, let's smoke it out more. Let's make it really dramatic. Because some people have different eye shapes. So you just kind of have to adjust to what eye shape you have. And then I come in with this really, really dark gray and make sure she's smoked out and dramatic. I have all this powder all over me. So there is step one, that little smoky eye. You can kind of see the difference. Kind of crazy. The little things always add up. And then we do the other side as well. Usually before all this stuff, we get our makeup like prepped and ready and our wig prep in, all these pin curls. So usually by the time I'm doing this, it's about like 45 minutes to 30 until half hour. Try to make sure I get everything done before I get the wig on. Then I just make sure these two are even, make sure they're solid Nelly, and then move on. So that's the only part that has this gray. And then we have this really pretty, like shimmery copper color, because this is part of like Demeter's wig. She has this really pretty copper color in her wig. And we just take a little dab, bring her on up. And it just closes in that part and makes it kind of blend all seamlessly. I know some people do the copper first, but I tend to do the silver first just because it's darker. And then I move it on in. Kind of big difference once you get towards the end. And then just do the other side. And a little goes a long way. So much of this makeup is like so pigmented and strong that a little goes a long way. So I had to learn that along the tour. Sometimes my makeup would be too heavy-handed, or the opposite, it wouldn't be enough. So you have to really learn how to gauge with it. But I was never a makeup gal growing up. I was a t-shirt and sweatshorts and plain face. So this was a lot of learning for me, learning how to be better handed with makeup. So we take that same copper, we just blend it into those pretty little copper brown spots, just so that, because the powder tends to dull the makeup, so this brings out all the parts that we contoured beforehand. It just brings out that shimmer. And because the lights are so harsh and we tend to be so far away from the lights, this helps just bring it out. So it might look really dramatic when you're face to face with someone, but on stage it looks perfect. So you just have to be a bit more heavy-handed than you think. And we just go over that little contour spot. Bring her all in and make sure it's blended. And then you can kind of see how those sparkles ended up helping, hopefully as symmetrical as we can be. Just going in there, making sure she's okay. Looking pretty good. And then we think we're done with the eyes, but we never are. So we go in with this really pretty, this is like, almost like a gold shimmer. And this is little goes a long way for sure. And you just do little tops of your eyes here. I have smaller eyes, so I don't use as much color with this one, just because I don't have as much a lid to cover. But I bring that gold in and it kind of ties in the gray and the copper and gives you a really pretty smoky eye. You just blend her all in. And then we go in and use that same color to highlight that cheekbone, because she is a pretty cat. She's got all the pretty shimmery colors. And you just blend that into that contour. And you can kind of tell when the face shifts, how it catches the light, how different it is. It just adds a little extra sparkle for her. And then I bring that in as well. And then that brings in all the gold. And that is it for all those loose powders. Now we get into the dramatic eyes. So Demeter has this really, really dramatic cat eye. And I use the same brush that I use with all those black details. I go in and I just clean that same brush with our brush cleaner on a towel. Just because this makeup is like 4-stage, it is very heavy. I would like compare it closer to clay than I would to like a normal foundation. It has just a very like thick texture and the pigment is really strong. So I always try to make sure I get it all off of the brush before I go in with that eyeliner. We have lots of different brands of these. For this one just works better with my eye and my skin. So I have the little MAC little gel pot, and I just go in and I fill this brush as much as I can. So this was the biggest part for me to learn, because I mean, most people know cat eye eyeliner. Oh gosh, trying to make that symmetrical, tough. So this was the part I had to practice the most. But you just go in and you follow this sharp line. And I've learned that the less you think about it, the better it ends up going. So you just kind of go in and do it. And then you take that little, well, I said little, huge line, and you follow it all the way back in to make a cat eye. You brush it all out and make sure that she is Gucci. And then you just connect that last little part and clean up that line just so it looks nice. Bring her in. Same thing. And then you just connect that part of the inner eye. I know that Demeter tends to have a lot more steps in her cat makeup than others. Everyone kind of has their own process, but I know for her the eyes tend to take a long time. And there you can see that huge difference between the two eyes, this large cat eye. And then we do the same thing on the other side. Try our best to make her as symmetric as possible. Same thing here, take that little line, you go all the way in, and bring her in. Try to connect it as much as you can. I'm definitely a learn by doing person, so I went in and I practiced my makeup probably like once a week when we were in rehearsal, so that by the time I was doing it for shows, it was at least in a place where it was good enough to be seen by everyone and creatives and make sure I was doing the makeup plot correctly. And you just bring that line up, make sure she's good and golden. And this is when I kind of come in to compare both sides. So one side looks a bit higher than the other, so I go in and I just perfect that little line just to make sure she's okay. And I bring that corner in, and they're looking pretty good. So I usually look front on, I turn a little bit, make sure she's okay, and then we have our cat eyes up here. And you just want to make sure that they're all filled in and good to go. So now we have the tear ducts. So for my eye, because I have a South Asian eye, because of just my like ethnic background, my eye tends to shape a bit differently with the tear ducts. So Victoria was great in making sure that we made the makeup so it fit my face. And so we just altered the eye a bit to make sure that it complemented. We go in with, instead of the black MAC gel pot, we go in with the white one. And this is when it really starts coming together. I remember when we were first doing this, this is when I started really going, oh, this all makes sense. We look like cats. You just take that corner in, and I just follow my eye line. And I take it a little bit further out onto the bridge area. And I make sure I just have enough product and bring it all the way over. Kind of like this. And I just make the bare bone shape. And then I fill her in. I have really long lower lashes, so I always make sure to color those in too. Fill in that lower lash line. Sometimes this part gets tricky. I wear contacts, so sometimes I have to make sure that the gel pot doesn't get in there. And then I follow for my makeup plot, I follow that white line all the way up. And I bring her up kind of neck and neck neighboring that black line up there. And I just kind of make sure it follows the eye line. I kind of make it more pointed. And come down, and there's that. So now I have to obviously do the other side. So much of this makeup is like trying to be symmetrical, so I feel like it's made me even better at my own makeup somehow. Same principle, drag her all the way in. Bring her out and fill in. Same principle, same thing. This was actually it's always kind of therapeutic to do this before a show because it's quiet and calming and you can just focus on one thing, get your mind centered. It gives you a nice ease into the show rather than kind of being shot out of a cannon. You have time. And same thing with this one, you bring it all the way up so it matches the other side. Bring that white in, and now we have 2 cat tear ducts. We go back in with that MAC liner. It seems like a lot of steps when you say them out loud. I never really realized until I started speaking it. But now is the part where you outline this white part. So I usually wait for it to set and dry for a little bit or fan it. And then I come in with that same MAC gel liner and I line it with another little fine tip brush. And then I go in and outline all this white part and then connect it to the cat eye. So that's kind of how it starts off. And then I bring mine all the way up to meet as well. And then I just thicken that line to make sure that you can tell it's there and that it stands out, and connect it to the rest of the cat eye. And there's one eye done, almost completely. And you can see the outline here and how it joins that cat eye, and same thing other side. This tends to be the part that I sometimes get stuck on if I'm being too meticulous. Sometimes I end up spending too much time on this process. And then we're almost there. Bring it all the way up, same thing. And I always just check and make sure that it's somewhat similar to the other side. And clean it up, and then we have 2 cat eyes right there. The worst, hardest part is over. This is always the hardest part. So now that all that's done, I usually just go in with my lipstick, and I always use a bit of chapstick beforehand, and you can tell my lipstick's on it. But that way it just helps the lipstick spread a bit better, and because we just powdered, sometimes it creates a different texture. And I go in with this ruby red lipstick. That really stands out. I remember when I was being taught the makeup, Victoria told us, all the Demeters, that this was kind of like her signature, was the big bold red lip. And you just go inside the lines that you made. And just like normal lipstick, you just kind of fill in what's missing. And there we have a cat lip. The thing that brings it all together are, of course, the lashes. We have these big dramatic lashes to put on. And because my eyeliner is so large, I usually just put it right directly above my eyeline rather than on like the actual lash line. I use a non-latex glue because I'm allergic. So you just paint this on like a normal lash. Make sure she is shaped and ready. Just kind of shape her, make sure she is ready to go. And put it right on. So for me, I usually do it a bit on my eyelid, also because of my eye shape. And because these lashes are so long and dramatic, they don't really fit my eye, so Victoria actually taught me to bring them up onto the lid, which makes them a bit more dramatic and noticeable. Same thing, other side. Sometimes this can be a difficult part if you've had a lot of coffee during the day. You tend to get like little shakes. So I can always tell if I've had an extra cup of coffee if I'm putting on my lashes and I'm like trembling. So sometimes that makes this step a bit different. And there we go. To top it all off, I always make sure my bottom lashes, my real lashes, are meeting the lashes, the false ones. So I go in there, match it all up. I always feel like the lashes almost make some of the biggest differences. Come in and curl it up. There's one, and last but not least, the other side. And there she is in all her glory, Miss Demeter. And then I always spray with Final Seal. We have this Ben Nye Final Seal that just makes sure everything is locked and loaded, ready to go. And then we just go in there and make sure all of it's ready. I usually do 3 to 4 rounds just to make sure she's good to go. And she is all ready and set. And then once we get the wig on, we actually add fur lines just to bring the wig into the cat. But that is Miss Demeter's makeup plot. And then she is ready to go after this messy station gets cleaned up. She's ready to go and be a cat. Hello. This is what she looks like. We're back. And we're in almost full cat. So we tape this little guy down so that way it stays on our head. We do so much dancing, and our wig and makeup team is the best we can get. They always make sure we're secure on that stage with this wig. So I go in and I do fur lines. Demeter has very intricate fur lines. She has a lot. And so what we do is we match all these colors on the side of our wig. Our wigs are also made out of yak hair. Crazy, crazy, crazy. And I usually go in first with the black, and I use that same chiseled black brush that I used on all the details. And I go in there and fill it as much as I can. And I match this lace with the black, and I go in there, just make sure it's blocked out. And these are always the quicker and faster you do them, the better they look. If you spend too much time on them, it is usually catastrophe. So we go in there and we create these little fur lines, and they can be of all varying shapes and lengths. And that's my first set. And then I usually stick with the black. I don't like to jump back and forth. So I go and I do my other side, and she has some on this side too. So you can see this first little part here, and then we come in over here and we bring her in to match her spiky fur and bring her all the way in. And then she has just a little bit on the top here. All the details really tie in. And we're done with that black section. So now we go back in with this copper. And we use another chiseled brush, but it's a little bit shorter because this product is a bit thicker, like the texture. So this just tends to take on the product a bit better. And you go in on all that lace and make sure she is all covered. And same thing, you bring in the fur line. So for Demeter, she has little spurts of like white that also come in to tie into these white parts of her wig. So I leave some space in this copper color to bring in some of that white. So you'll see some gaps here. And then I go in later and fill that in with white, and it comes all the way down just to tie it all in. Looks crazy right now, but I promise it always turns out looking fabulous. cover all this side. Same thing, other side. Bring in those fur lines. And you bring it up on top here. And you just bring it down. I always angle my fur lines a bit further down rather than straight across, just because my face is more of a heart shape. So I always try to complement the shape of the face and the cheekbones while I do this, just to make sure it all flows. So now we got all the copper done. Last but not least is the white, which I always think is my favorite part because it just makes the makeup pop. So I come in with another chiseled brush that's just for the white. Make sure it has enough on it. And I come down and I bring it in at the top here just to add some. And then I fill in those in-between parts. And again, the quicker, the better they usually look and more natural. So you can see where that spot fills in. I come in at the bottom here, add some white. And this is a little white speck part here. So I fill in that lace line on the wig. Come on in. And after that, she is ready for the Jellicle ball. She is fully done up. This is the full Demeter makeup look with all the fur lines. Yeah.